Avast ye YouTubers, I just be getting back from Pirates of the Caribbean. Jar, 'twas an okay film. Alright, I won't be doing that voice the entire time. But yes, I did just get back from seeing Pirates of the Caribbean on Stranger Tides, the fourth installment in the Pirates of the Caribbean franchise. And it was alright. It was decent. It was certainly better than the third film, which should mark off whether you're going to like it or not. If you felt the third film was alright, or acceptable, or even good, which I didn't, uh, then you'll like this one. It's pretty much guaranteed. If you like the second and first one, you'll probably find this one acceptable. If you've hated the entire franchise, what's wrong with you? It's a fun franchise. Lighten up a bit. But yeah, now that's not to so this is a good one. That is not to say that this film doesn't have its problems. A lot of it is starting to suffer a little bit, I think, from series fatigue. But there are things they can do to fix that if they intend on making more sequels. But in and of itself, it's a fine film. It is a bit choppy. It does have pacing issues. It certainly has pacing issues. And I think at times making us care. Mainly care about the action on screen, I should say. Mainly because the plot is very simple and the action at points does seem to pad it out. Especially once they hit the... I'm not sure if it's an island or they're hitting Florida. It's not so clear. I think it's intended that you're hitting Florida, but it's very mountainous for Florida. Once they kind of hit land and stay on land, it's certainly... that's where you tend to see a lot of padding. But up until that point, it was alright. But I digress. I should get right into this. The Pirates of the Caribbean franchise was getting overbloated, especially I think you could see that in the third film. For one thing, the Elizabeth Turner, well, yeah, the Will Turner Elizabeth Swann plot really should have ended at the first one with maybe a cameo appearance in the second. Instead of kind of trying to force that as those two being the main protagonists of the story, when I think the directors, the audience, even the film itself kind of realized, no, Jack Sparrow is. Why are you forcing these two? They had a really good story to do in the first one. Different classes of people, different backgrounds, coming and getting through all that and finding love and all that. Made sense really to stop that at the first one. Would have been fine. I think you really started seeing it dragged out in the third one, and I think they finally really decided to just drop it, make this an Indiana Jones type, ignoring the fourth Indiana Jones, of course, where it's one character, he goes around and meets different people every time, keeping maybe a few core people around, especially the few core characters that are really kind of, I think, set the mood of the universe, shall we say. And that's what they do here, and it works. It works great in that respect, because they had way too many characters that they were, I guess, forced to give way too much time in the previous films. For example, Pintel and Raggedy, the two kind of comic relief pirates, were getting... Yeah, they were finding ways to force them to play bigger and bigger roles in the series, even though they were just a couple of comic relief minions, really, in the first one. And they kept on trying to pump up their importance. Same thing with, I can't remember their name, but the two guards that were kind of the equivalent of the Pintel and Raggedy. They were kind of given more and more place, or at least being forced. Yeah, the movie was kind of forced to slow down and go, hey, it's these two guys. Yeah, they were way overburdened with ancillary characters in that respect. And this film did the right thing in cutting down a number of or at least cutting down the number of returning ancillary characters, taking people back from just taking a very core group. You have Jack Sparrow, you have Barbossa, because really it seems like the franchise does kind of play on their relationship. And I think also Jeffrey Rush and Johnny Depp really do a good job playing off each other. They have good chemistry on screen. And Gibbs's character, played by Kevin McNally. He fits in. He's not in there a whole lot. He's actually kind of dropped, and you don't see much. But he is there for certain plot points to at least explain certain stuff going on in the background. He has a purpose there. He has a very simple purpose, and he just serves that purpose. Of course, new characters are introduced in this one. Ones that kind of fill. We have a replacement comic relief pirates. We have kind of replacement comic relief soldiers, kinda in the privateer crew. There's one or two officers there. More importantly, they kind of add at least new characters. For example, they have King George. Yes, the of course, this is an American film, so of course King George is not going to get a very good reception here. Which he doesn't here. He kind of comes out as just being extremely flat and kind of awkward, which you would expect for a guy that is, medically not sound of mind. I also have a feeling that, well, I know the directors do have this love of kind of the Spanish conquistadors and that whole type of culture, and they do kind of really poke fun at the anti-Catholicism of that period of England. Damn if the Catholics get it. If you watch the Cinema Snob, they point out the same thing. It seems to be this character's thing is he really hates the Spanish because they're Catholic. And speaking of the Spanish in this film feel like they're from a completely different movie that's going on, and this happened to occasionally intersect. And not even this occasionally intersect, but seem like they don't even care that they're intersecting. Either that, or they actually are the most efficient character. They're too efficient to have a movie made about. This is a spoiler warning right here, but their whole ideal, their whole purpose is they don't want the fountain because they think it's an affront to God. That only God can grant immortal life, and so they're going to just go and destroy it. Pretty much simple. And they pretty much, that's the first scene they establish them wanting to go to the fountain. They get the directions there. They go. They literally just kind of pass by everybody. There's a quick little action filler as they're waiting to go into the place. They go in and they wreck the thing down and just leave. I guess you could say, actually, in the Pirates franchise, they're pretty much the only good faction, which is kind of ironic, because normally if you show Spanish, the Spaniards from this period, they're normally not shown in that great of a light, and here they have a very simple mission, they go and do it. It works, it's kind of funny, I got some humor out of it. There was especially one of the lines I did find funny was, they're fighting in the fountain, you have the privateers and the pirates, they're fighting each other, and then all of a sudden, the Spanish show up with a massive force. It's like they had like 3 whole ships filled with nothing but soldiers. And they kind of show up, and one of the British officers stand up, draped in a Union Jack, declaring, like, "This land is for the King of England!" And the Spanish just shoot him, and the one guy, this is like his only line, or it's like one of his 2 lines in the entire movie. He goes, after he shoots him, he goes, "Somebody mark that man's bravery," or take note of that man's bravery. It was delivered very dry. It was delivered so dry that it was funny. And they literally come in and just wreck the place, leaving only one cup, or only one shot of using the fountain's water. And they really just go and destroy it, and they go, "Okay, our job's done. You two can continue fighting each other. We're just gonna leave." That's what I was saying. It's almost like they were from a completely different film. It was really, nobody expects the Spanish Inquisition, and nobody expects us to leave. Poof. You could probably say they were just Deus Ex Machina, because they were only in a couple scenes, but other than that, I should talk about the new kind of relationship here in Penelope Cruz and Johnny Depp. Actually, for Penelope Cruz, out of what I've seen her in most of her films, this is what she works. This kind of relationship actually works well, or they fit each other, because normally they try to put Penelope Cruz into roles that she is I hate to say too old for. Yes, she is still hot. Yes, but she's hot, but you can clearly see she's not 20 or in her early 30s. Um, but with her playing off, Johnny Depp, who's also pretty much up around the same age, they fit very well together. It doesn't feel awkward like I think a lot of times when she tries to get into these type of roles. Because she's working off Johnny Depp, though, she does kind of fit a little better. She can get a little annoying, and I think her character itself is a little confusing. What she trying? They're trying to basically make her a different kind of Jack Sparrow. I'm not sure exactly. I have a feeling there's some elements in here that they're trying to push for a second trilogy, which maybe that means it'll be alright. If not, it's kind of unclear. Her father, they again, this is another spoiler. They do clearly establish eventually that she is Blackbeard's daughter, and she kind of wants to save her father's soul so much that at the end she actually wants to, basically, the Fountain of Youth demands somebody else has to have their life sacrificed, and she was going to do that for her father, but Sparrow switched the cups that they're supposed to drink, and therefore, uh, Blackbeard's life gets sent to her because they're both dying. And I think they really needed a scene or two, and they really should have been able to find some space for this, because this movie's about 2.5 hours long, to have that relationship more flushed out. Because she doesn't seem to truly get that her father is evil. I mean, there's one scene where he kind of clearly implies that he was willing to shoot her in order to make Sparrow go get the two chalices, which are key to this Fountain of Youth. And he kind of says afterwards, like, "Oh no, I knew which guns were loaded." He basically did a Russian roulette, and it's quite obvious to the audience that he was lying, that he was But I think they needed to explain why she was willing to ignore that, willing to go and push herself to really keep, even at the end when the father was clearly gonna go take the cup of life and let her die. Maybe why she was willing to do that. Maybe she felt she should if she just sacrificed her life or something with that, it'd be worth it to save her father. It wasn't that clear, and I think that was one of the faults. And I think that was one of the faults with pacing, where at times it needed to be slower, at other times it needed to speed things up. As for Ian McShane, though, as Blackbeard, he was a great addition. I would actually not be too surprised if he shows up again, despite the fact he seemed kind of completely dead. But hey, there's also a couple other additional you have characters that might play a bigger role, but it was really a subplot. You have Philip, was a holy man, another Catholic. That's what I was saying. There's a very strong Catholic feel to this film. I'm guessing the writers probably actually were Catholic. And it's actually interesting to kind of note on that, because there is this long ignored anti-Catholic streak in the United States, which really is completely forgotten. And I have a feeling, I think these guys, the writers, are kind of aware of that and tried to push that in this film. I mean, really, if you look back into history, it was groups like the Ku Klux Klan were equally as anti-Catholic as they were, racist. They can basically considered the two groups one and the same, at least in their treatment sometimes. So I'm wondering if they were kind of trying to hit on that. I could be overanalyzing it though. But yeah, we have Philip the Holy Man, and his kind of relationship with Serena, the mermaid, and she was. They try to develop this it's another one where you're not quite sure how this relationship works. It's more clear than it is with Penelope Cruz and her relationship both with Jack and her father. But this was still a little almost like puppy love, where they both kind of, you're different. You protect. So do you. And it's kind of unclear where they're going with these two. Because by the end, they both kind of do stuff to save each other. Or at least Philip does a lot to save her. and he's kind of dying, and she takes him down, like eventually kisses her and takes him down into the water. Which before, when we saw this, the mermaids were ripping people's to shreds. Literally, you saw a big puff of blood and them kind of feasting on her. So if they don't pick this up again, it's really like, okay, is she taking him down and letting him live with her under the water? Because that was one of the legends, or is she going to eat him? Like I said, that was really, I think, something they're purposely putting in for a sequel, where they're kind of trying to make them the new Elizabeth and Will. If they're going for that, they needed a hell of a lot more character development, because they were both of them were way background characters, which is that's making me wonder if there was more studio interference. Like, no, you have to replace Will and Elizabeth. You have to have the replacements. And it was kind of like the writers and probably the director were like, well, like literally just barely put it in there just to suffice the studio. I almost have a feeling that's what happened. I'm not positive myself. Maybe we'll see them in a future episode or a future installment. I guess it'll depend on the box office receipts. And I'm been going on now for about 15 minutes now, so let me quickly wrap this up. There was, like I said, there was some good scenes, especially earlier on with the action. The initial chase and action scenes in London were good, and as well as the mermaid. It seemed after that, everything else was padding action scenes. It seems like they probably could have cut one or two of those out, and the film would have been stronger for it. The ending was okay-ish. It didn't feel like it felt like a proper end, I should say, on a proper scale. I don't think the tensions are up there as much. They did do somewhat of a decent job at putting the dilemma of who should get the cup and live. But, I mean, they kind of just, literally, everything is kind of diffused by the Spanish kind of showing up. There was a big battle going on, and then all of a sudden the Spanish go up with this going, yeah, excuse me, guys, sorry our movies are intersecting here, but we got shit to do. And that really is the Spanish attitude here is, excuse me, guys, kick over a statue, continue. But it was fine. I still enjoyed it. I had some fun with it. I'm sure there's going to be people that didn't like it. And I clearly can agree with you on that. I mean, not necessarily that I agree that it was a bad film, but I see where many of those that just don't like this film, I see where they're coming from. It is a lot of rehashed stuff. There's big pacing issues. There's big character development issues. And that really can bring down a film. But I think I've talked enough on this here. If you've liked the previous ones, check it out because you'll probably enjoy it. Signing off for now.